Our story begins with Helen, who is sitting at a bar drinking, and all eyes are on her because of her beauty. But one of those eyes belongs to Mr. Ian, whose jealous and possessive gaze is fixed on her as if he's known her forever. Helen is drunk and remembers seeing her fiancé sleeping with her half-sister. So she decides to take revenge, and her first step is to cheat on him. She's drawn to Ian's bold looks at her, so she approaches him and touches him, deliberately targeting his weak spots. The cold Mr. Ian literally melts from her touch on his neck and warns her sternly that she should run from him before he goes too far. But she tells him she's been betrayed and doesn't want to be alone tonight. He loses control and takes her to his mansion, touching her like he's been waiting for this moment for years. The next morning, she wakes up to a call from her cheating fiancé telling her she's late for his birthday party. She quickly gets out of Ian's bed and escapes the mansion while he's still asleep. But he wakes up to her movement, stares at the path she walked out of, and says to himself that this girl will be his, and it's too late for her to run after letting him touch her. He decides to go to the birthday party she's headed to, and we find out that Ian is actually the uncle of Helen's cheating fiancé, and that he's been obsessed and madly in love with Helen for years. As soon as Helen sees him at the party, she's shocked, but he pulls her into the bathroom, corners her and tells her she's a bad girl. How could she leave her future owner in bed and run away? He tells her she needs to be punished by his touch, so she'll remember how perfect they are together and that she can't belong to any man but him. He orders her to break up with her fiancé and ends his command by kissing her and walking out. Helen stands there, stunned by his dominance and masculinity, which she actually likes, because her fiancé Chan isn't like that at all. Then she leaves the bathroom, nervous, and finds her fiancé in front of her, asking why her lips are bruised. Helen gets tense, but her eyes are fixed on Ian, who's sitting across from her, and sends her a message saying that if she doesn't break up with him, he'll punish her. So Helen challenges him and pretends to be talking on the phone, saying that he's rude and violent and that she's not his property for him to control. She leaves the party but finds him right in front of her, ordering her to get in his car or else he'll get out and put her in it his own way. So she gets in with him. At the same time, Chan receives a message from Helen's sister telling him she wants to spend the night with him, so he goes to her. We go back to Ian, who pulls Helen toward him, kisses her and tells her this is her punishment for not breaking up. He tells her that he's the only one allowed to touch her, because she will be his and only his lover. Then we see Helen entering her house, impressed by Ian's possessive and manly way, but she's met by her sister Sana, who's jealous and full of hatred. She's so envious that she throws herself at Helen's fiancé to make him leave Helen and break her. She even records herself while he's touching her so she can send the video to her sister. And while they're sitting at breakfast, Sana sends the photo to Helen, but our heroine is smart and not about to let her revenge plan fall apart that easily. She edits the photo, hides Chan's face, and shows only her sister's image to their father, who shouts at Sana and kicks her out of the house. This makes Sana feel even more hateful because Helen always wins. After that, we see Helen going to Ian's office. She approaches him and tells him she knows he's her cheating fiancé's uncle. She's curious why he touched her even though he knew who she was. She gets even closer to him, but he pulls her into his lap and tells her she's stubborn and mischievous, and that he's the only man in the world who's right for her. He's about to kiss her when his assistant walks in, so she hides under his desk. Then she decides to show him her rebellious side and keeps touching him to make him nervous and lose control. And it works. He struggles to speak properly in front of the confused assistant. But Ian loses his cool and kicks the assistant out. Helen comes out from under the desk, looks at him with a challenging gaze, and tells him she knows he's going to help her in her revenge. Then she walks out. She sees her sister Sana trying to seduce Chan, who thinks Helen hasn't seen anything, so he runs after her and asks to take her out on a date. But since Helen is not the sweet, innocent type, she asks her sister to join them just to annoy her. Chan refuses because in reality, he's just using Sana for his own desires. Still, Sana insists on seducing him, wanting to make him hers and steal him from her sister. We see this during a family meeting between Helen and Chan's families, where they're supposed to discuss Helen and Chan's engagement. But Sana keeps flirting with Chan and touches his leg under the table. Helen, aware of their cheap and disgusting behavior, spills water on her sister's leg to show her she knows exactly what they're doing. After that, Helen gets up and goes to the bathroom. But as usual, Ian pulls her to him and corners her, telling her that he ordered her to break up because she will belong to no one but him. He tells her he will destroy her engagement because she is his. He gets closer and whispers obsessively that he's the only man who deserves her because he's the only one who can make her happy. But while he's cornering her and kissing her, Sana is standing outside, eavesdropping. She suspects Helen is with a man, so she calls the whole family, pretending she wants to expose her sister and ruin her marriage. But Ian realizes what's happening and walks out, saying he was just discussing work with Helen. He even calls his friend, who shows up and confirms the story. And as usual, Helen defeats her wicked sister. Their father takes Sana home and keeps shouting at her, asking why she's trying to hurt her sister. Helen, being clever, pretends to be kind and defends her sister. But as soon as their father leaves, she tells Sana she knows she's sleeping with her lover, but she's just a substitute for her and he'll never choose her. Sana feels furious and goes to her mother, telling her that she wants to beat Helen, take her life, her lover, and marry him instead. Her mother says she'll help her, and indeed, her mother arranges with a club owner to assault Helen, who is at work when her colleague tells her she has a meeting with a client at the club. As soon as she arrives, the deranged club owner tries to assault her. She tries to defend herself, but he drugs her. She screams for help, and at the table next to her, Sana is sitting watching with Chan beside her, completely unaware of what's happening to his poor fiancé. Sana brought him there to seduce him, hoping he'd fall in love with her and to watch her sister broken and humiliated. But her plan fails when Ian and his friend enter the place. Ian manages to save Helen, touches her anxiously, terrified for her, and realizes she's drugged. He pulls her into his arms and holds her until she's okay, telling her not to be afraid because as long as he's alive, he'll make sure she's safe. He holds her tightly and takes her out. But on the way, they see Sana and Chan in each other's arms. Ian takes Helen outside so she doesn't get hurt and whispers that he's here and he'll always protect her. Helen remembers a moment from high school when a boy saved her from bullying and told her he was there to protect her. She hugs Ian tightly and asks him if he's the one who saved her in the past. But Helen is drunk and drugged, so out of it that she starts touching Ian. And as always, he doesn't reject her. The next day, we see Helen waking up, having forgotten everything she told Ian and everything they did together, but she remembers when she finds the pain relief ointment he left next to her. She says Ian is a wicked, sly, perverted and harsh man, but she's attracted to him and to how possessive he is. She leaves his room to look for him, but runs into his secretary, who instantly shows jealousy upon seeing Helen and clearly holds a grudge. It's obvious she's obsessed with her boss. The next day, Helen is at work, but she gets a call from her friend Eve saying her mother is in the hospital. She rushes there and is shocked to find her father's wife there, and that she's the one who hurt her mother. Our heroine punches her father's wife and defends her poor mother. Her friend tells her that her father's wife will keep harming them because of her daughter and suggests she ask Ian for help. But Helen remembers how gentle Ian was with her and refuses to ask for his help because she's starting to get attached to him. She and her friend go for a walk in the hospital, and she sees Ian's secretary caring for a sick girl. She overhears from the nurses that the girl is the secretary's twin sister, and that she had a rich boyfriend who's been covering the hospital's expensive bills even though the girl's been in a coma for 3 years. While they're standing there, Helen sees her fiancé Chan entering a room in the hospital. When she gets closer, she sees him hugging her sister Sana and realizes it's one of Sana's plans to seduce Chan. She bursts in on them and Chan panics and pulls away from Sana. Trying to justify himself, he tells her Sana is just a friend because she's his lover's sister, and that he only felt sorry for her when she told him she was in the hospital. Helen tells him that instead of feeling sorry for her sister, he should have felt sorry for her because she called him while she was being assaulted, and he didn't answer. Then she walks out. Chan turns to Sana and realizes she's the one who hid the call and kept seducing him so he wouldn't go to Helen. His true face appears and he tells her she's just a girl he sleeps with, and she means nothing to him, that he loves Helen and will marry her because she's a respectable woman. Elsewhere, Helen is sitting with her friend Eve when she receives a call from Ian, who is jealous and upset that she saw Chan. He orders her to come to his house, and when she arrives, he pulls her toward him, gets close, and touches her. He's very intense and asks her why she always tries to make him jealous. He tells her she's stubborn, but he's in love with that stubbornness. Even in his anger, he notices she's not wearing anything on her foot. He kneels in front of her and puts her shoe on so her foot won't get hurt. Then he leaves her in his room and goes to meet his nephew Chan, who came to him asking for help because Helen is ignoring him and not answering his calls. Ian feels even more jealous and tries to control his emotions. He tells his nephew to give Helen some space if she really loves him. She'll come back and answer him. He notices Helen's bag is still there, and he panics, afraid she'll be found out. He quickly takes the bag and hides it. Helen notices his discomfort and jealousy, and tells him she's only with Chan to get revenge on him and her sister, that she would never marry him. Ian kisses her because she managed to ease his jealousy and obsession and reassure him. Then he goes back to his nephew, who's drunk, and tells his assistant to take him home. Ian stays behind, smoking alone, still feeling jealous. Helen comes and stands next to him, saying she always dreamed of smoking with the person she'd fall in love with. Ian lets her try, but warns her never to do it with any man but him. He gives her his credit card and tells her it's hers now. Helen smiles and says she'll spend all his money. He pulls her into his arms and tells her to spend it all, because his money never runs out. Just like his obsession and love for her, he asks her to stay in his arms for the night. The next day, Helen returns home but finds Chan waiting. He apologizes for everything he's done. Helen, thinking of Ian's jealousy, decides to speed up her revenge plan so she can get rid of Chan once and for all. She tells him they should have the wedding next week. And then comes the wedding day. Helen is talking to her friend, telling her that she and Ian agreed she would reject Chan in front of everyone and marry Ian instead, and Ian agreed to help her. That's exactly what happens when Chan asks Helen to marry him. She rejects him and exposes him and her sister in front of everyone, playing the video of them together. Helen slaps him in front of the crowd and tells him she regrets ever loving and trusting him for years. We find out that Helen was initially drawn to him because she thought he was the one who saved her from bullying in the past. She's about to leave the wedding after exposing them, but Ian appears, kneels in front of her, and asks her to be his wife. Helen agrees, but both Ian's and her families object. Chan starts shouting and accuses Helen of being nothing but a whore, that she's the one who cheated and used him, all while sleeping with his uncle. But Ayan, with his sharp tone and handsome face, raises his voice and tells everyone he doesn't mind destroying the entire family for the sake of protecting his wife. He says that if they want to continue living under his support, the number one condition is that they respect his wife Helen because she's under his protection. He tells them it's best to accept their marriage because Helen was born to be his, and no matter the circumstances or path, he was always going to end up marrying her. She's the only girl in the world he loves and is willing to give his life for. He takes her and walks out of the hall. At that moment, Sana is standing and watching all of this unfold. She sees that Chan is still clinging to her sister, even after being exposed. So she stops him and tells him she's pregnant with his child. That's her final plan, to make him hers, but he ignores her and walks away. We return to Helen, who arrives at the mansion with Ian. He gets close to her and tells her she's finally officially his. He confesses his love and says he knows he touched her before, but their wedding day is so special to him, it feels like it's their real first time. The next morning, we see him preparing breakfast for her, but her friend is sending him voice messages asking about the wedding. Ian smiles as he listens, because Helen had been praising him and his abilities to her friend. But suddenly, while they're sitting and laughing, she gets a message from her father telling her to come and take her things from his house because he disowns her. Ian notices her sadness and goes with her. As she collects her belongings, he sees the jacket he gave her when he saved her in the past, but he's shocked when she throws it away because she thinks the one who saved her back then was Chan. She still doesn't know that her savior and first love is actually Ian. After gathering her things, they're about to leave when her father asks her to give up her shares in his company to her aunt as punishment for embarrassing the family. But Ian steps in to defend her. He tells them that his wife doesn't need any shares from their company because she's going to be his partner in all his businesses, and all his money is at her disposal. However, he also says that he will not give up her inheritance. Because it's her right, he threatens that if they even think of taking what's hers, he will ruin them and shut their company down. He takes her home, but she's dizzy, so he seats her down as usual. He kneels before her and takes care of her gently, telling her that if the whole world turns its back on her, he'll always be by her side. Helen is surprised by the strength of Ian's love and afraid of it too. That's why she's never confessed her feelings to him. She's afraid to open her heart to him. The next day, we see them at Ian's company, because he wants his wife by his side 24/7. So he hires her to work with him. But then his secretary enters and is clearly upset and jealous after learning that Ian married. Helen senses that the secretary has feelings for her husband and decides to keep an eye on her to find out the truth. But suddenly, while she's watching the secretary, Chan appears and violently drags Helen into a private room in the company. He starts accusing her of betrayal, saying she cheated on him with his uncle, forgetting that he was the one who cheated with her sister. Yet he tells her he's willing to forgive her if she gives herself to him and becomes his. But she refuses, so he tries to assault her. Meanwhile, the wicked secretary is secretly watching, and instead of helping Helen, she locks the door on her. Poor Helen tries to defend herself, but Chan is stronger than her. Suddenly, Ian storms in and protects his wife. He threatens Chan, telling him that if he ever comes near his wife again, he will end his life and the lives of his entire family. Because Helen is a red line no one is allowed to cross. Helen notices that Ian got injured while hitting Chan, so she takes him to treat his wound and tells him to take care of his handsome face, because it belongs to her. But his wicked secretary enters. Wanting to help him, she tells Helen that she can take care of her boss. But jealous Helen replies that Ian is her husband and her man, and that she knows how to take good care of him. The secretary gets irritated and leaves, and Ian is pleased because his wife is jealous over him. A few days later, Helen is working when she starts receiving messages from Chan, who has suddenly become obsessed with her, claiming he loves her and wants her back. She smirks sarcastically at the messages, but Ian sees them and gets jealous. He drags her to his office, corners her, and tells her that even though she belongs to him now, he's still insanely jealous over her. Helen smiles at his obsessive love and tells him he looks handsome in a tie. He whispers to her that the tie would look even better wrapped around her hands. And then he actually does what he imagined, tying her hands with the tie and telling her it's her punishment for making him jealous. Later, we see Helen sitting in her office, thinking about her husband's actions and how deeply he loves her. But her thoughts are interrupted by the wicked secretary, who tells her that Ian is just using her and that he's in love with someone else. She's referring to her twin sister. She tells Helen that Ian was madly in love with her twin, but the girl is in a coma, and when she wakes up, he'll definitely leave Helen and go back to her. Their conversation is interrupted by Sana entering Helen's office, holding a deal file. She starts bragging that Chan's family has accepted to marry her because she's pregnant, and even handed her a business deal. Helen calmly cancels the deal and kicks her sister out. But before that, she thanks her for taking out the trash from her life, referring to Chan. Sana leaves furious and runs into Chan, who can't stand her because he never loved her. But the moment he finds out that this deal could bring him closer to Helen, he decides to help Sana. The next day, Ian is taking his wife out on a date, and they stop by her friend Eve's place first, but they're shocked to find Ji-woon, Ian's close friend, there. That's when they learn Ji-woon and Eve were drunk and spent the night together. Ian and Ji-woon step outside to talk. Ian tells him that if he really loves Eve, he should take advantage of what happened to get closer to her. And indeed, Ji-woon is in love with her and happy about what happened between them. Meanwhile, Eve is sitting with Helen, ranting about Ji-woon, saying he's a pervert and that she never wants to see him again. But suddenly, while they're sitting, Chan and Sana show up and sit with them. As always, Chan takes the opportunity to try to get close to Helen again. But Eve grabs Helen, and they leave together to go to Ian and Ji-woon. As usual, Eve glares at Ji-woon with disgust over what happened between them. Helen tells Ian that Chan is there, so Ian decides to invite both Chan and Sana, because he suspects they're plotting something to harm his wife. The six of them gather together, and Chan's plan is to spike Helen's drink so he can assault her. But Ian sees through him and stops Helen from drinking. Cleverly, he keeps provoking Chan until the idiot drinks the spiked drink himself. Sana tries to continue the plan and hurt Helen, but Eve, being the perfect friend, protects her and hits Sana. Ian pulls Helen into his arms and walks out with her, telling her he's by her side and that she can't keep being kind and silent with people who try to hurt her. Helen looks at him impressed, then lets go of his hand and storms back to drag Sana by the hair, literally. Ian stands there proudly watching his wife finally break her silence. Later, he takes her to their room, pulls her close to dry her hair, he had washed it for her, and tells her he's proud of her strength and that she must never let anyone hurt her, no matter who they are. He tells her he knows Chan is full of hate and will try to hurt her again. But before he can finish, the doorbell rings. Helen goes to see who it is, and it's Sana, who drugs her and drags her to another room, where Chan is waiting to assault poor Helen in a twisted attempt to force her to break up and belong to him again. Sana helps him, thinking he'll finally love her if he regains his pride. Just as Chan is about to touch Helen, Ian bursts in, punches him, and pulls Helen into his arms while she trembles in fear. He looks at his nephew and tells him that if he doesn't disappear from the city within 24 hours, he'll kill him. But Chan completely loses his mind and attacks Ian with a bottle, injuring him, causing Ian to collapse into Helen's arms. Still trying to protect her to the last second, she rushes him to the hospital and stays by his side, telling him that ever since she entered his life, he's only gotten hurt, yet he never abandoned her, not for even a moment. She realizes that without even meaning to. She's fallen deeply in love with him. Ian notices her worry and overthinking, so he touches her face and tells her not to blame herself because she's innocent. He tells her he's okay and there's no need to be afraid because he'll always be by her side. Helen leaves to get some clothes for Ian, but she runs into Chan's mother, who tells her she's a bad woman who ruined their family, and that Chan is injured because of her. The nurses are watching, but Helen defends herself and tells the truth, that Chan tried to assault her, and Ayan saved her and hit him. She tells her before accusing her of anything. She should have focused on raising her son properly. Helen walks away, but she sees her husband's secretary standing with the doctor, discussing her twin sister's condition. When the wicked secretary notices that Helen saw her, she waits until Helen enters Ian's room, then sends her a photo of Ian with her comatose sister, trying to prove that Ian is just using Helen until his true love wakes up. Before our heroine can even process the shock, she gets a message from her friend that her mother's house was attacked. She rushes there and is horrified by the state of the house. She checks the security cameras, but they're malfunctioning, only showing a blurry image of a thin man trying to break in. Suddenly, as she's watching the footage, she gets a message from an unknown sender saying, "You will be mine. I'm the man who loves you most and deserves you." Helen gets scared and returns to the hospital, intending to tell Ian, but she holds back. Remembering the photo, she tells herself that even Ian is using her. But Ian's voice pulls her back. He thanks her for being by his side and says he can't imagine life without her. She feels his sincerity, and his eyes show how deeply he loves her. She lets her guard down and tells him not to hide anything from her, that if his feelings ever change, he should tell her instead of betraying her and breaking her. Before he can respond, Chan and his mother appear. She tells them the grandfather is furious with Ian for what he did to Chan, and he wants to see them. The next day, everyone gathers at the grandfather's house. He dotes on his grandson Chan and on Sana because she's pregnant, and constantly mocks Ian, belittling him for stealing his nephew's lover. But Helen defends her husband and tells them she was the one who approached him, that she loves him, and he was her only support and protection after being betrayed by her lover and her sister. Everyone starts to sympathize with her except Chan's mother, who brags that Chan is going to be a father, while Ian, who's older, is still with a wife who hasn't gotten pregnant. But before she can continue, Helen suddenly feels dizzy and nearly faints. Ian calls the family doctor, who announces that she's 2 months pregnant. Chan gets furious, realizing Helen got pregnant by Ian while she was still dating him. But the entire family lights up with joy at the news, because no matter what happens, Ian is still their favorite son. Ian is overjoyed to become a father, and he takes Helen to the hospital to check on her and the baby. But his secretary sees them and is consumed with jealousy, and decides she'll do whatever it takes to tear them apart. At the same time, Helen goes into the bathroom and Ian locks her out, but suddenly, he hears her screaming. He rushes in to make sure she's okay, and she tells him someone sent her a terrifying message saying she will be his, and that he's going to get rid of her baby so she can belong to him. Ian immediately calls Jae-woon and goes to him, and they start investigating who's sending these messages to Helen. Ji-woon tells him it's clearly someone mentally unstable and obsessed with her. So Ian decides to take her phone and laptop to protect her from seeing anything else that could scare her. But Helen gets bored and tries to use his laptop. It's password protected, and when she types her own birthday or his, it's wrong. But when she types the birthday of the secretary's twin sister, it works. She breaks down in tears and decides to run away, convinced Ian doesn't love her. The next day, she goes to work to grab her things and leave. But the wicked secretary confronts her, accusing her of being a terrible person, and even fakes a video showing Helen spilling coffee on her. Helen assumes Ian will side with the secretary, thinking she's the sister of his former lover. But Ian stands up for Helen and protects her. Helen is left confused. If Ian doesn't love her, why does he care so much? Still, she decides to leave him. She runs into her sister Sana, who makes things worse by taunting her, saying they're all better off without her and that no one really loves her. Helen decides to sell her shares in her father's company and disappear, to live alone. She meets an old schoolmate named Namjoon, who works in stock trading and sells him her shares. He tells her there's a high school reunion that evening and asks her to come with him. She agrees and is shocked when she sees her husband there. Ian becomes extremely jealous when he sees Helen with another man. He can't control himself, especially when everyone keeps complimenting Helen's beauty and saying she and Namjoon look good together. Ian completely loses it, announces to everyone that Helen is his wife, grabs her hand and storms out. But Namjoon follows them and calmly, but slyly, tells Helen he'd love to see her again. That only fuels Ian's jealousy. Later we see Namjoon contacting Ian's secretary, and they team up to ruin our couple's marriage. We also find out that Namjoon is the obsessed man who's been in love with Helen since high school. At the same time, Ian is driving Helen home, and she's confused by his anger and jealousy, even though, supposedly, he's still in love with someone else and just waiting for her to wake up. She's about to talk to him, but Ian, overwhelmed with rage, loses control of the car and they crash. He regains consciousness and finds Helen unconscious. Terrified for her, he carries her and rushes to the hospital. When they arrive and Helen wakes up, the doctor tells them she has to treat her without anesthesia because Helen is pregnant. Helen agrees and says she'll bear the pain. Ian offers his hand for her to bite so she can get through it. Afterward, they move her to a room, and a nurse tells her she's never seen a husband love his wife the way Ian does. Ian comes close to Helen, touches her face, and apologizes for hurting her, even if it wasn't intentional. Meanwhile, Namjoon is with the secretary and convinces her to get rid of her comatose sister, Ian's old love, and take her place since they're twins. Then Ian receives news that Yaz, his former lover, has woken from her coma. He rushes to see her and she hugs him tightly, pretending she remembers nothing. At that moment, Helen leaves to look for Ian because she's worried about him. But she's shocked when she finds him hugging Yaz. She starts crying and calls her friend, asking her to come get her. She goes to her friend's house and asks her to prepare divorce papers because she misunderstood Ian and assumed he would leave her. But the truth is, Ian had already told Yaz that he's married and deeply in love with his wife. The next day, Helen is preparing the divorce papers, but she runs into Chan and Sana. They mock her, saying that Chan's lover is awake now, and he's going to abandon her and their child. Helen walks away from them and heads to the company. There, she finds all the female employees talking about Yaz waking up. Helen feels jealous and heartbroken, wanting to see Ian, but changes her mind when she sees him talking to his secretary. She misunderstands again, thinking he's getting close to the secretary, when in reality, he's giving her orders to take care of her sister because he's busy. And because the sister is just someone he's helping, nothing more. Suddenly, while Helen is at the office, Namjoon calls her, pretending he wants to meet about the stock sale. But the twisted man has made a deal with a cafe worker to spill water on Helen, so she'll have to go change her clothes, giving him a chance to secretly photograph her, because he's completely obsessed with her. And that's exactly what happens. He takes pictures of her and plans to use them to ruin her reputation, so that everyone will turn against her and she'll be left all alone. At the school reunion event, he sends those photos to everyone. Helen and Eve are both shocked by what their classmates are saying. Eve stands up for her, defending her fiercely, but suddenly, Ian appears and silences everyone. Helen's classmates even tell her that Ian is the one who saved her in the past. Jiwoon shows up with him, and suddenly the wild and fierce Eve turns into a soft kitten. She stands beside Jaewoon, who hugs her, and we find out he succeeded in winning her heart and making her his. Back to Ian, he takes Helen to his car and asks her why she's ignoring him, suffering and not telling him what she's going through. She tells him she's still in shock from realizing he's the one who saved her all those years ago, and that she always thought he loved someone else. But he tells her she's a child, and a fool because he's never loved anyone else in his life but her. He tells her she's not allowed to leave him, and takes her to his family mansion. But they're shocked to find Yaz already there, pretending to be sick and weak just to stay in the mansion and try to seduce Ian. Helen gets jealous and is about to leave, but Ian hugs her and tells Yaz that Helen is his wife, his love, and his partner. He says he could never love anyone else, and that Yaz is just a girl from his past he's helping out only because she's sick. That same night, the unbelievably handsome Ian is awakened by a thud. Helen also wakes up and says she'll go check. She finds Yaz pretending to have fallen down so Ian would come help her. But jealous Helen drags her husband back to their room, locks the door, then calls everyone in the house to come help Yaz. She tells Yaz that anyone can help her except Ian, because Ian is hers and hers alone. Then she storms off, giving Ian her signature angry kitten stare, and pretends to go to bed. Ian comes closer, kisses her again, and tells her how much he loves her jealous personality and that he could spend forever watching her just like this, jealous over him. That same day, Yaz decides to team up with Sana, since she also hates Helen, and they plot to destroy her together. They meet to discuss how to take her down, but Helen shows up right in front of them. Yaz tries to push Helen down the stairs, but by sheer luck, Ian appears and pulls his wife into his arms just in time. Instead of Helen, it's Sana who falls. Yaz panics, scared that her plan will be exposed, and quickly lies, saying that Helen was the one who pushed her sister. But Helen had already figured out that this girl wasn't Yaz at all, that it was the secretary pretending to be her just to get close to Ian. So she decides to test her and suddenly pushes her to see if she'd fall. But the girl throws away her cane and walks just fine. Ian asks her what she just did and what she did to her sister. She breaks down and admits she did it all because she loves him and wanted to take her sister's place. She tries to escape, but Chan grabs her and hands her over to the police. Ian takes Helen, who is completely drained by everything that's happened, and hugs her tightly, telling her that the danger is over and not to be afraid, because her safety is his #1 priority. He tells her he's missed her and begs her not to run from him or ignore him again. But Helen still remembers how his laptop password was the secretary's sister's birthday and gets upset again. Ian stands up and tells her that date was actually the day she saved him and that he fell in love with her at first sight. He even wrote her a love letter. Our hero's whole charisma starts to melt as Helen reads the letter, but he manages to silence her with his warm, deep kisses. But suddenly, the obsessed stalker sends her another message, telling her she's almost his. Ian grabs her phone and rushes to Jae-woon, determined to find out who the stalker is. Unfortunately, at that moment, the stalker Namjoon kidnaps Helen and Eve. He obsessively tells Helen how much he loves her, and how the only thing standing in the way of their relationship is her baby. He tries to force her to drink something to terminate the pregnancy, but Helen fights back fiercely for herself and for her child. Meanwhile, Ian and Ji-woon are able to uncover the stalker's identity. It's Namjoon, their former classmate. They rush to his place and finally manage to rescue Helen and Eve. And at long last, our 4 heroes are able to live in peace. Our cute little recap ends with Ian holding his child, preparing breakfast for his wife, and telling her that she will forever be the greatest achievement of his life. He kisses her and they continue their life in happiness.